Hiya, welcome back to the editing studio. Still in the same room, which is something of a miracle. This was unexpected, to be honest. This one is a couple of days ago. I had an appointment at the hospital at Stockport at Stepping Hill, and the weather was fantastic. The conditions were perfect, and I came back through the hills, through Cheshire, through the Cheshire part of the Peak District, effectively, and it's really quite nice. One or two interesting bits, well worth filming anyway. So I put it together, and my microphone is still working pretty well, so I think I've found the answer there. So see what you think. Leave me a comment, tell me what you think, by all means. But anyway, let's get on with it. Cheers.
Well, now, for the last couple of years I've been coming across to Stepping Hill Hospital at Stockport, the intention being to sort out once and for all my spinal problems. But a few trips ago I came across here. I came on the way back, and I've been seeing the signs for Kettleshulme, which is a lovely little village along this side road. Now, I know Kettleshulme. I know the area around Kettleshulme from my climbing and mountain biking days. Just got to be careful in case of ice, because it's really cold today. But I've never approached that area effectively from the Stockport direction. So a few times ago I actually came across it. Wow, it's an absolutely beautiful way back. And of course, after a couple of trips I thought, this has got to be worth a YouTube video. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm on my way back from the hospital now, having been on a bit of a wild goose chase to see my consultant for an appointment that was cancelled without my knowledge. However, they managed to put together an appointment for me, so it wasn't a wasted journey. I just had a repeat of the appointment I had last month, but that's beside the point. We're coming back across into the Peak District, across to Kettleshulme to begin with, and then from Kettleshulme over the top, over the moors, sort of overlooking the Goit Valley, past Jenkins Chapel, and Windgather Rocks, of course, which I'll point out, Jenkins Chapel, and cross a particularly notorious road, and down towards Macclesfield Forest and Wildboarclough. So stick with me. We're on the humble Himalayan, and it's another journey that this bike is absolutely perfect for. Sun's out, but believe me, that doesn't make it warm. Just look at the views. Across on the left is the crag that we'll be riding past very shortly. Up on the skyline on the left, that's Windgather. Having said that, I know these action cameras tend to sort of flatten everything out, and you can't really pick stuff out all that easily, but it's across there, believe me. Now we're coming into the village of Kettleshulme, just briefly, because we're going to turn off in Kettleshulme and take to the hills again up to the right. Just here. Side end lane. Traffic. Goodness gracious me. Yeah, don't worry. I didn't want you to acknowledge me anyway. Oh, well, that's a strong smell. Somebody's spreading somewhere. Now you can see the rocks in front of us. This is Windgather. It's not the highest crag in the world by any means, but it's a good learner's crag. Spent some very happy hours up here on Windgather. I taught one or two people to climb up here. Well, there's some hardy soul actually climbing at the minute. My fingers are going numb at the thought of it. I saw a red jacket anyway. Yep. And this little bit on the left here, this is the only quarried part of Windgather, just on the left there. Windgather Quarry. Now we're coming across the ridge on this stretch of road, and although we can't see down into the Goyt Valley, it is indeed down there to the left. Another village that's in this vicinity, although it's one that we're not going to be going through, is Saltersford, and that gives some clue as to the origins of a lot of these roads that we're riding on across here. These were, back in the 1700s, these were salt roads. Now bear in mind we're in Cheshire, and the Salt Triangle as it's known, Northwich, Middlewich and the other which doesn't come to mind at the minute. They lie on quite a thick layer of salt, and there's Northwich, Middlewich, Nantwich, yeah, and Northwich in particular. There's still a lot of salt taken out of the ground at Northwich. And these roads were used primarily for the pack horse trains transporting the salt, so they're known as salt roads, or were. This one in particular we're turning onto. This is very much a salt road. And the bottom of this bank is a nice feature. Jenkin Chapel. And allegedly, it's a word I've used quite a lot. Allegedly, supposedly, reputedly. They all mean the same thing, don't they? Might be true, might not be. But allegedly, Jenkins Chapel was built here because it's at the junction of two salt roads. So there'll be people passing by all the time, some of whom would want to visit the chapel, of course. It's a lovely little building. There's a couple of chapels in this vicinity, just over the hill, more or less in front of us, a few miles away. There's Forest Chapel, which is more or less in the middle of Macclesfield Forest, which is not too far away. But this is Jenkins Chapel. Spend a bit of a moment here. Jenkins Chapel. It was built. The original part of the chapel was built in 1733, but the tower we're looking at here, this was built afterwards, 1755. It's dedicated to St John the Baptist, and it's an Anglican chapel. But it's always struck me as just a beautiful little building. So that's, yeah, Jenkins Chapel. Just have to raise my visor now and again in an effort to see where I'm going when the sun's right in my face. Now down below us, this is Lamaload Reservoir through the trees. It's a lovely stretch of water, but like I say, it is a reservoir, so it's artificial. It dates back to the 1950s, and it's a water supply for Macclesfield, which is nearby. But it's put to good use for water sports, sailing, fishing, kayaking, canoeing. Like I say, it might be artificial, but it is a nice stretch of water. Lamaload. Now then, I wonder who recognises this stretch of road we're going across. This notorious stretch of road. That should give a clue. Well, another clue is up on the skyline on the left. There's a building with a mast next to it. That's a Cat and Fiddle. So yes, that's the notorious Cat and Fiddle Road. Very popular with bikers, obviously, because of its windy nature and the flowing bends. It's also subject to the dreaded average speed cameras. There have been a couple of nasty accidents across there, admittedly, but I still don't like to see those things. Now we're coming down to the Stanley Arms down here, which is where we're going to turn right and head down towards Wildboarclough. turn my indicator off this time. Whoa! Nearly missed it. Just up to our right, looking up at it now, is not getting the best view of it, to be honest, but that's Shutlingslow, 503 metres above sea level. Shuttling's at 503. I don't do metres, I do feet and inches personally. I still do. We're talking about towards 1600 feet above sea level is that little hill up there. It's a great little walk. Many years ago, I can't remember which son it was, one of my two sons, on a Sunday morning, he wanted to go for a walk, and so we took him out in the car and I took him for a walk up to the top of Shutlingslow. When we got back, went to his mum and said, Mum, Dad's taken me up a mountain. It must have looked like it to him because he wasn't very old. Suppose that's a better view of Shutlingslow from up here across there on the right. The valley down to right of us, this is the valley formed by the River Dane. The River Dane is the physical boundary, if you like, between Staffordshire and Cheshire. And we're going to cross the river. It's a very junior River Dane that we're going to cross in a couple of minutes. But the far side is quite forested, and it's actually, the forest on the far side of the valley over there is actually known as Back Forest, and there's a feature in the forest that I intend to cover pretty soon on a future video. It's quite a spectacular ravine, called Lud Church. Coming up on the left is the Eagle and Child, or at least it used to be called the Eagle and Child. It dates back to the 1700s as a pub. You can see the inscription or the carving, engraving above the door of an eagle and a child. There's all sorts of different stories. 1738, all sorts of different stories about how that got its name. Now we're coming to the River Dane. As I said, this is where we cross the River Dane, the boundary between Cheshire and Staffordshire, and this is where I'll say ta-ra for this video, because I know it's going to run out fairly soon. That's another disused chapel dotted about all over the place, and now we're in Staffordshire, so that's a suitable place to say ta-ra, cheerio, ciao. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching anyway, and again, if you've enjoyed watching it, if you could push the like button, push the thumbs up, push the thumbs down if you want, but prefer it if you push the thumbs up. And my subscriptions are climbing slowly, but every little bit helps, so if you bring yourself to subscribe, please do.